All right, guys, this session is going to be around Gen 3 specifically, and some of the software changes that are coming, both for this year and I guess for the future, really. So I want to first start out by talking about the software path of where we're at and where it's going. And so we're going to do that on the flip chart here. So a few years ago, Precision went to a software format where the year is part of the software. So this year, 2020.0 is what 85 or 95% of everyone's going to be running. 2020.1 is also out there. This is only going to be for FurrowForce users and vApply base users, which I only have one person doing that. Everybody else needs to do upgrade to 2020.0 if you're on Gen 2 or Gen 3. And there is a major line in the sand between these two software platforms, and I'll explain why in a little bit. So in the future, 2020.1 will become the base software platform for next year. It will become 2021.0. So the .0 is going to be what most everybody runs, and the .1 platform is going to be what new products and kind of some of the newer the newer feature or newer products are going to use. So this .0 software has been tried and true, proven a lot longer in the field than this software. So we generally want everybody on this. In years past, we've been a little bit jump the gun whenever there's a new software, myself included, that we wanted to update right away to the newest software all the time. That's not going to be the case for this year. Do not update to this unless you ask or talk to me first. And I'm going to explain why. So let me get a different color here. So the way software code was written in the past was they would build software for hundreds of different planner configurations. So we might have a B drive Delta Force planner configuration. They have a code for that. We'd have a B drive Delta Force Smart Firmer, configuration, and then we'd have a B drive Speed Tube vApply HD configuration, and on and on, hundreds of these boxes. Is how the code was built in the past. So I'm going to draw a box around B drive Speed Tube vApply HD, specifically 2 pumps on the same fertilizer system. That was not supported, actually, because there wasn't code written for that setup, so you couldn't do it. So that wasn't an option in years past. Moving from .0 to .1 tears all of these walls down, tears all these configuration walls down, and it draws one big box around everything possible. So what happens when we cross that line is we have to reconfigure everything. The 2020 doesn't assume anything. In years past, when you plugged a speed tube in, speed tube was self-recognized. When you plugged a waypin in, the 2020 recognized that there was a waypin plugged in. It doesn't assume any of that anymore. You have to configure and tell it where every single module and every single waypin and V drive and vApply HD and speed tube and vacuum sensor and on and on and on. You have to tell it where it's all located on what rows. So there's a lot more upfront setup, but the configuration possibilities are endless. So now you could, in the new software, you could have an electric pump on the right wing and an electric pump on the left wing, both controlling the same liquid product. That would be supported, whereas in years past it wouldn't be. So because we have to tear these walls down, you lose all of the configurations that are currently in the monitor. That's why you do not want to do this without a little bit of coaching. So as next year, as .1 becomes the platform, base platform for 2021.0, everybody's going to end up crossing this line for Gen 3 users, but don't do it if you don't need to this year, is my point. And this box concept sort of explains the reason why we lose configuration settings and we need to write all of that stuff down, take screenshots with our phones so that we can re-enter that stuff in once we cross that line. The same thing is true if you're on .1 and you downgrade to .0, you lose the settings the same way. Every time you jump across that line, this reconfiguration and reset up process is needed. So just a little bit of a blurb on that.
All right. For those of you that are going to be running the Gen 3 again this year, that ran it in past years, I want to highlight a couple of things that are going to be important going forward here. Just a quick rundown on this field view module, this rectangular box that's kind of shown on the camera here. There is an actual external, an SD card in here, this little trap door that is actually storing data on the field view module. We'll get to that in a minute and why that's important. Aaron's going to point the camera down here to the Gen 3. You're going to see some flashing lights back here. Green is good on your base module. And then you're going to see kind of where these Ethernet ports are, some flashing orange lights, which mean that it's actually talking with one another between the base module and the screen and the base module and the field view module, which we're currently connected to.
So all Ethernet connections on the field view module, on the display itself, on the DVM, they all have these two little lights, a green light on one side and an orange light on the other side, indicating there's data being transferred. So if that's ever in question, you can glance at the Ethernet port, and if there's a blinking light, orange light, it is talking. And those lights can change different colors, but that's just an FYI there.
Okay, so for those of you that have ran the Gen 3 in the past year or two, you have data that's stored on the Gen 3. So here's what we want you to do. From the home screen, we're going to go to Setup, the bottom right-hand side. We're going to go to the Data tab. And then what you want to do is the Export button is here. And exactly what I want is I want to export the field map data from prior years. And so you're going to have all your data on your fields from 2019. And you'll actually probably even have some 2020 fields will be populated already if you've updated your software, which, by the way, you do need to update to the 2020.0 software before doing this in order to select and delete these fields if I want to do them all at once. So I'll select, the field data here, and I'll hit transfer, and it'll transfer to my USB stick. Now you might have Climate or some other, you probably transfer your data to Climate. So if you have a cloud sync with Climate, all that data should be there. And you might not feel the need to do it to USB, but I like to have a backup to my backup, but that's just me. So once I've exported that data, I want to delete that data off of there. So I'll go to delete button here, and then I'm gonna go to my field map data, and I'm gonna select my 2019 fields, and I'm gonna delete all the data that is off of those fields, hitting this delete button.
And it's safe to delete this because we just exported the data, or if you're a FieldView Plus user, that data is in the cloud. So it's
safe,
okay.
yeah.
It's okay to delete this data, just like you would do on the Gen 1s and 2s when it got filled up and there wasn't any space left. You had to delete some data.
Correct. So we're just trying to prevent this monitor from getting bogged down with data, and I can show you where you can see that usage here. So then once I go back, so that's step 2. So export step 1, step 2 is deleting it, but we also want to delete this FieldView module SD card. So I'm going to go from my home screen. You might have this diagnose. You can get to it here. I can push on it here, or I can go to setup and diagnose here. And I'll see it up in the top, in the middle here, FVM, which is FieldView module. I'm going to tap on that. And then it's going to show my SD card usage, whatever percentage it's full of data. I'm going to delete my data from that, yes, and it's going to take that down. Now, you're still going to have a percentage of data in there when you do that. Should be less than 1 or around 1%. But if that thing is full, maybe it's got 10 to, who knows, 70, 80%. I want to get that off. And then, because we don't want to plug into FieldView and rewrite that data back into FieldView. So it's important to do this step. So
this step should be done prior to connecting your iPad with your Gen 3 and FieldView. Prior to connecting those this spring, this step should be done where you delete, you export, then delete the data prior to connecting the iPad and 2020 together.
All right, so one other quick tidbit, and you might not need this screen at all. Aaron might take you there if there was a problem, but here's where you would go to look at the data for how much is being stored on your DBM. So you'll go to Home, then Setup, Systems, Display, About, and it's going to show me my disk usage on my DBM is 5.2, my display is 1.3, and my FieldView module. So I don't, depend on the amount of acres you cover, this amount is obviously, it could be more or less than your neighbor, but we're trying to eliminate that by exporting and deleting that data off, just like we have in the past with our Gen 1s and 2s.
Also, if you're running YieldSense takes up a lot of space. So if you're running planting and then YieldSense, your monitor is going to fill up way faster than somebody else. So YieldSense growers, beware of that your system fills up quickly. Also, want to point out all Ethernet cables are not created equal. So if you buy cheap ones from China on Amazon or eBay, they may or may not be of quality. The cables that Precision sells are shielded cables, and we are running power through them also, so they need to be good quality type cables to try to ward off any headaches. So Same goes with iPad cords. You can buy better quality iPad cords than others, so the best you can find is what I recommend. I also want to say that there's 2 USB ports on the Gen 3 system. One of them's on the display itself. The other one is on the DBM. We very rarely use the USB port on the DBM, the display base module, that green box that sits on the floor in your cab, most likely. The really only time the real only time you're going to use that, as opposed to doing some diagnostic stuff, would be if you're doing a backup all or restore all. The USB has to be plugged into the DBM. Otherwise, use the USB port on the side of the display for everything other than that backup all thing. So we're going to go through here on the simulator how to edit your screen layouts. So across the top, we have we've got a standard layout, which is kind of a large screen in the middle. Right now, this is set up for a split screen, which if we click on this full button, that will take it back to a single screen. If we click split, that takes us back to a split screen where we can run 2 different metrics at the same time, similar to field view. The metric heavy screen is if you want to see numbers, more numbers, and then there is a large map if you just want a big map. Now, most of the time, people are running this with field view, and field view is your map. So this is probably not a very popular screen, but it is there. Most of the time, people run a metric screen because they want to see most numbers that they can and use their iPad for their map. That's your choice, but that's what's most common. So this is very, very customizable. And we can edit what is being shown or not on the home screen by clicking this button in the top left corner on the Gen 3 is your edit button. And so it kind of grays everything out and puts an X on any of the boxes. So let's say that our planner doesn't have liquid on it. So we don't care about seeing a starter button because we don't have liquid. So we're going to X that out and come down here to add widget. And here's all the options. So there's metrics or kind of your numbers. There's a small, wide. As we go to the wide and the tall and the little bit larger screens, you get a lot more options that are available. There's a limited number in the small. Controls is would be controlling any system on the planner. So V drive is going to have a control. If you have V drive insecticide, it will have, you'll want a control box on the home screen. Delta Force has its control. Sometimes if there's room, guys will want to put a flip implement up there in case the 2020 gets confused which direction you're going. And this can happen, especially if you do small movements forward or backwards. Let's say you're backing into a corner and you didn't get lined up quite right. And so you pull forward and then, 3 feet, and then you back up 4 feet, and then you pull forward 6 inches. These small little movements the GPS can get confused at which way you're going. So this allows you to manually flip the tractor around and get going in the right direction for mapping purposes and clutch control, etc. We do have a V-Drive Quick Start choice there. This would, if you would put this on your home screen, which we can actually do, and we'll drag it up there and put it in the vacant spot. And then hit the check mark to save it. Now we have a V-Drive Quick Start here, and I'm not sure if, yep, there it is, it does work. So it count down from 2 seconds, 1, 0, and then it's active. So what's happening there is the V-drives are spinning at 3 miles an hour for 7 seconds, I believe, until it sees speed. Then that takes over. So if you tap this button and you don't move your planner, you're going to have 7 seconds worth of 3 miles an hour seed in a nice little pile at the bottom of your seed tube. So that's intended to, if you stop in the middle of the field and you get out to check something and you want to take off again, that's intended to eliminate that 24-inch gap or whatever that you have in the crop to try to take that out. So it's a little bit of a hand-eye coordination, letting off the clutch and hitting that button all at the same time. So back to this edit screen, we can we're running SmartFirmer on this planner, so we're going to add some metrics around SmartFirmer. So we got a soil temp here. We see we already show a CEC. So but we want to make CEC smaller. So we're going to throw soil temp there. Then we're going to add CEC beside it so they both fit. And we don't care about this acres per hour up here. So we are going to put some organic matter value there and for a moisture value. And you can edit to your heart's desire. You can add more screens. So if you have multiple operators that like to see different things, you can add, well, I guess you can't here. We've only got 8 layouts, so we've reached our maximum, but you could hit this plus button and add additional screens and rename them whatever you want. So that's kind of how you add and edit the screen. So for new installs, if you're adding liquid, for example, you are going to need to add a control for liquid. So we're going to add, a starter control there. And we're going to check mark, save it, so that when we go, that we can click on that and enable and disable it, just like you can enable and disable Delta Force, etc. Also, as it was last year, there's no map for SmartFirmer data on the Gen 3. So your SmartFirmer metrics are not a choice for the map on the Gen 3. You can only view those on the iPad. So that's the same, no change on that from last year. Also, on the Gen 3, there is no loss per acre like there are on Gen 1s and 2s, and there is no good spacing metric like there is on Gen 1s and 2s. In lieu of this good spacing, we can configure SRI. SRI stands for seed release index, and it's a more strict value than spacing. So it's essentially spacing on steroids, you might say. So a good number is, in the mid-teens 17, 18, anything under 20 is acceptable. And the lower the number, the better. So like on a test stand, it'll be 10 or 12. A lot of times that's on a concrete floor that is stationary. But in the field, 15 to 18 is pretty common. Anything under 20 is acceptable. And that is just a little explanation on that is if you have a quarter of an inch, if your seed's a quarter of an inch closer to its neighbor or half of an inch, it docks your SRI score. Any movement off of perfect spacing docks your SRI score, whereas a spacing metric, like on the Gen 1s and 2s, don't get docked until you're within 4.5 inches of its neighbor. So that's why SRI is a more strict value than spacing. So on Gen 3s, we're using SRI in place of spacing. So if you have room on your homepage, it's a good metric to have up.
All right, Clint here. I want to talk about a couple more features that are available in the Gen 3 monitor. If I were to click on this GPS icon up here, I'm going to bring up not only my NEMA messages and radar speed and a few other metrics that, quite honestly, you're probably not going to want to pay attention to unless Aaron or Proc Support tells you to. But I want to highlight a couple of things here. There's this 2020 Connect app. This is a app that we can download on your mobile device, your tablet, iPad, or phone, and you can screen, you go to the App Store, look up 2020 Connect, I believe is what you'll search for, and it should pull this up, and you can download that, and you can scan this QR code, and what it's going to do is take all the information from the setup that you've put in of the planter, make, model, all the configurations, and dump it into this app, which gives you some flexibility then when I'm in the app to go about the business of if Aaron calls you or you call Aaron and you've got a problem and he wants you to unplug a few things and try a few different things out, you have the ability to go in with this app and take your iPad or iPhone to the back of the planter, scan this QR code, and you can reset modules while you're back there and enter hybrid information while you're back there. So there's some really neat functionality of things that we can show with this particular app. All right, I'm gonna kind of have Aaron hold the camera here. I'm gonna toggle back and forth. This icon right here, this 2020 Connect, is the one you're gonna download. And then I get this box here that's going to allow me to scan this QR code, and it'll ask me to join it, and this might take a few minutes potentially, or a few seconds depending on our bandwidth. And now I can see on the 2020 Connect, all the things I inputted into the 2020 are now going to show up on this. And here's that button, Reset Modules, at the very top that I was referencing earlier. I can go into up here. I have diagnostics. I have an event log. I can actually run a few health checks. I can run my V-Drive health checks. I can spin load my meters, or I can spin them without seed. I can zero my load cells on Delta Force. I can do my GPS measurements from this app, all along with selecting my hybrids from this map. So there's some pretty neat functions in here. primarily, I think it would be good to use it as a diagnostic tool going forward, but I think we're going to develop this app a little further down the road. Okay, from there, one of the things that Precision Planting has released for last year is cloud connectivity. So similar to what you would find with Climate Field View, with a Gen 3 monitor, you will have the ability to connect to our cloud and sync your data up to our cloud. The intention right now, just a quick background on this, last year we beta tested this to see what our bandwidth is. And in speaking with them again this year, our intention isn't to charge like an annual subscription if you are moving the data and not keeping a lot up there, but moving the data from one cloud platform like ours to another cloud platform. It's where the storage of the data over the next few years and the amount of data being stored starts to cost us some money. So I'm not saying there won't be an annual subscription down the road. For this year, we are currently not going to charge for it. So you can use this cloud connectivity if you're not using Climate, and you can back this data up to our cloud. And if you want to use it down the road to move that data from the 2020 cloud to SMS or some other third-party data management software, you're more than welcome to do that. So I can go into, again, I can go home and click on this GPS icon. Cloud connectivity is just going to give me some basic information on the streaming, but my cloud connection comes from this section right here. So while I'm in the cab, I'm going to probably, I will be selecting a hotspot on my phone to get connectivity. And so on this particular instance, I connected to KE-Seed's Wi-Fi signal. So usually you'll, when you get your hotspot up, it should pull up as an option here. If not, you can hit scan. And in some cases, depending on the connection, it might take a few minutes to pull it up. Once I did, I can double click on that Wi-Fi and I can enter the password that's on my, listed on my hotspot on my phone. From there, you can select cloud backup enabled, and you have to enter your cloud username. Now, this is where I want to show you how to go about doing this. So you'll need to go to our website, 2020.ag. From there, you can create an account here, as I have done. And when you create that account, you'll get your username and password. So here's my email, and I have my password. I'll just show you real quick what this does. I'm going to log into my account. And this is going to give me all my fields, which aren't many, obviously, for this year and last. And I can download information. There's going to be some mapping features that are going to come out of this here in the near future. So we're going to have this cloud web address, domain name set for you to go in and access your planting data after after season and without the monitor. So you'll get the main thing is getting your cloud account name and username, because you will need that when I go in and click on this. I'll enter my username, and I'll walk through that process, and then I will, it'll ask for my password, and then I'll log in, and then I'll know I'm logged in when this says log out. And then what you'll see is throughout the process, when I'm collecting data into the 2020, you'll see this cloud. If I were to go to the screen, you'll start uploading the information from the 2020 into our cloud. One other thing that you can do, as you'll see below here, if I'm connected to Wi-Fi on a hotspot, I now have the ability to see satellite imagery. So I can see everything from the air, and that'll appear on my maps that I have here. So I can select that imagery style and see that. If not, it'll just go with your typical pattern like you see here, or a grid pattern rather.
Clint, I got a question. If you go back to the cloud connectivity connection there, so if you don't connect to a hotspot and you pull back in your yard at the end of the day, and can you latch onto your shop's Wi-Fi?
Yeah.
And it just dumps.
It'll
all the
dump it
stuff
all.
from
Yep.
that day.
Yes, that's correct.
To the cloud backup.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct. So it might be a really good option for those of you guys not running Climate to have that, and you want your data saved, but you don't have a cloud account, and we're not going to charge you for it for this year anyway. So get that moved up there with a couple minutes of setup of account. You can go in there and get that set up, and you're ready to rock.